Take it off. The words hit the corridor like a slap. Dr. Adiz Tagan turned slowly from the nurse's station and found a Korean woman standing 3 feet away from her, finger pointed, eyes burning with something that looked older than this moment. The woman was well-dressed, composed in the way people are composed right before they stop being composed, and she was staring directly at the scarf tied neatly at Adiz's neck. "Excuse me," Adiz said. "That scarf." The woman stepped closer. "Take it off." Adiz didn't move. She looked at this woman, this complete stranger who had materialized in her corridor, in her hospital, on her shift, and she felt something settle in her chest. Not fear. Something colder than fear. "I don't know who you are," Adiz said, her voice dropping to the register she used when she needed a room to listen. "But you need to lower your voice and step back from me right now. I said take it off." The woman's hand shot forward, fingers reaching for the scarf at Adiz's neck, almost grabbing it, close enough that Adiz felt the air move. Adiz caught her wrist. "Not hard. Just enough." "If you touch me," she said, very quietly, very clearly, "you will not like what happens next. I promise you that." The woman snatched her wrist back. Her chest was heaving. "Do you even know what you're wearing?" "It was given to me," Adiz said evenly. "And whatever your problem is, you need to step back." The woman laughed once. Sharp. Disbelieving. "Given to you," she repeated softly, like the words themselves offended her. "I don't know you," Adiz said. "I don't know what you're talking about. And I have patients to attend to." She turned to the nurse behind the desk. "Call security, please." A security guard rounded the corner at the far end of the corridor, then stopped the second he saw the man standing there. The entire energy of the hallway shifted. "That won't be necessary." The voice came from behind them both. Low. Unhurried. The kind of voice that didn't need volume because it already had weight. Both women turned. Kong Juno stood at the entrance of the corridor, still in his coat, his eyes moving between the two of them with the quiet calculation of a man reading a situation he had not expected to walk into. He didn't look alarmed. He looked like a man who was choosing his next words the way other men chose weapons. "Juno." Adiz said his name before she could catch herself, and something shifted in her face. Confusion first. Then something harder. "You know her?" He held her gaze. "I can explain." The woman spun toward him. "Juno. Who is this woman? Why is she wearing?" "Suyun." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Not here. The corridor went very still. Before we go further, if you love powerful romance stories filled with tension, emotion, and unforgettable twists, subscribe and stay with me, because this story only gets crazier from here. Now, let's go back to where it all began. She was already running late. Dr. Adiz Tagan rounded the corner of the east corridor with her coat half-buttoned and her stethoscope swinging, the soles of her shoes squeaking against polished floors. The emergency call had come in 12 minutes ago, and she had driven from her apartment with her mind already ahead of her body, vitals, charts, the shorthand the on-call nurse had given her on the phone. She didn't see him until she was already colliding with him. The impact knocked her bag clean off her shoulder. Papers fanned across the floor. She was already crouching before she registered what had happened, scooping everything up with both hands, not looking up, not slowing down. "I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm so sorry." She grabbed the last folder, straightened, and was moving again before the man could open his mouth. She turned the corner and was gone. Kong Juno stood in the middle of the corridor and watched the space where she had been. Then he adjusted his jacket and kept walking. He had come to the hospital on family business. The King family held a financial stake in this institution, had for years, and there were administrative matters that periodically required his presence. He met with who he needed to meet with and was heading back out when he saw her again. She was coming from the opposite direction this time, slower, the urgency gone from her body, a chart tucked under her arm. She looked up at the same moment he did. They both stopped. "You," she said. The corner of his mouth moved. "Me? I'm so sorry about earlier. I didn't even see you, I was running," he said. "Yes, I noticed." She laughed before she could stop herself. It surprised her, the laugh. She pulled it back. "It was an emergency. I had a patient." That wasn't me being reckless." "I didn't say it was." He glanced at the name on her lapel. "Dr. Tagan." She looked down at her coat, as if she'd forgotten the name was there. That's me. Yes. Kong Juno. She nodded slowly, studying him the way she studied things she hadn't decided about yet. What brings you to the hospital, Mr. Kong? You don't look like a patient. I'm not, he said. Family business. I'm done now. He glanced at the chart under her arm. And you clearly aren't. Never, she said. He nodded once, and they parted. She walked 6 steps before she became aware that she was still thinking about the way he'd said her name. He came back 3 days later. She was at the nurse's station when she saw him cross the lobby, and something in her chest did a small, unnecessary thing that she chose to ignore. She caught his eye. He changed direction. You again, she said. Family business, he said. It continues. She smiled at her chart. How long will it continue, exactly? As long as it needs to. She looked up at him. He was looking at her already, and there was something in the steadiness of it that made her want to hold the conversation a little longer than she needed to. I hope your family business resolves itself, she said. I hope your emergencies slow down, he said. They looked at each other for one beat too many. He found her office an hour later. He had asked at the desk, given her name, and been directed down the hall. When he knocked, she looked up, and the small unnecessary thing happened again. Mr. Kong. I thought I would say goodbye properly this time, he said. Since last time you left me standing in a corridor. I had a patient. You always have a patient. She set her pen down. Is there something I can help you with? He sat down across from her, unhurried, like he had been invited. What would you say if I asked you to get coffee with me? She blinked. Coffee. Or tea. I'm flexible. Why? He tilted his head slightly. Because we keep running into each other, and I think that means something. It means this hospital is not big enough, she said. He smiled then, a real one, quiet and quick. Have coffee with me, Dr. Tagan. She looked at him for a long moment. That depends. On what? On whether you're always this direct. Always, he said. She picked her pen back up. Fine. Coffee. Coffee became a habit. They met twice that first week, 3 times the second. He told her things about himself slowly, the way guarded people do. About his mother. About the weight of inheriting a family name. About a younger sister he loved but no longer fully understood. She told him she had come to the city for medical school and never left. That she had learned early that the only person she could absolutely count on was herself, and that this had made her both very capable and occasionally very tired. He had looked at her when she said that and said, "You don't have to be the only one." She had looked away first. He invited her to his parents' home on a weekend, casual enough that she almost didn't register what it was. She dressed carefully anyway. Mrs. Kong opened the door and pulled her inside like she had been expecting for years. She fed her. She asked her questions. She laughed at things Adiz said and then turned to her son with a look that communicated several paragraphs without a single word. Before Adiz left, Mrs. Kong disappeared for a moment and came back with a scarf folded over both her hands, the way you carry something that matters. She reached up and tied it around Adiz's neck herself, smoothing the ends. Wear this, she said. It brings good things. And you deserve good things, my dear. Adiz touched the scarf at her neck. Her throat tightened in a way she hadn't expected. Thank you, she said. Really. After she left, Mrs. Kong turned to her son and said, When are you going to marry this one? Mother. I'm asking a simple question. She's my friend. Mrs. Kong looked at him the way only mothers can. Just a friend, she repeated, and the way she said it made it sound like the most unconvincing thing she had ever heard. He hugged her and told her to stop. He was smiling the whole walk to his car. He asked her to be with him on a quiet evening when there was no occasion for it, no setup, no grand gesture. Just the two of them and the kind of honesty that builds up until it needs somewhere to go. She said yes before he finished the sentence. They both knew it had already been true for weeks. The call came on a night she was off duty. She was on her couch when her phone lit up with his name, and she answered expecting his voice. What she got instead was the sound of movement, urgency, a car door, and then him controlled but tight. Adiz. It's my mother. She collapsed. We're on our way to the hospital. She was already standing. I'll be there. You don't have to. I'll be there, she said, and hung up. She was at the hospital before they arrived. She had called ahead, briefed the team, and was waiting at the entrance when the car pulled up. When the doors opened and they wheeled Mrs. Kang out, the older woman looked up through the discomfort and saw Adi's face, and something in her expression softened. Even now, even like this. Adiz squeezed her hand once and then got to work. An hour and 10 minutes later, she pushed through the corridor doors and found Juno standing exactly where she had left him, upright, still, watching the door like he could hold it together by force of presence alone. He looked up the second he saw her face and read it before she spoke. "She's stable," Adiz said. "She's going to be okay." He closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. Then he crossed the corridor and pulled her into him, one hand at the back of her head, the other at her back, and he held on with the quiet desperation of a man who had been holding his breath for 90 minutes. She let him hold it. When he pulled back, his eyes were red at the edges. He didn't comment on it. "Thank you," he said. "She needs 2 to 3 days before she can go home," Adiz told him. "But I'll look after her personally. I promise." "That's too much for you, Juno." "I mean it." "I know you do," she said. "Go handle what you need to handle. She's safe." He kissed her forehead, stepped back, stepped outside to make his calls. Adiz stood alone in the corridor for a moment, one hand resting against the wall. The scarf was still at her neck. It was always at her neck on shift now. She had stopped thinking about it as something she put on. It had just become part of her. She went back to the nurse's station. There were notes to write and charts to update and a patient resting in room 209 who needed her. She didn't hear the doors open behind her. She didn't hear footsteps cross the lobby. She didn't know Suyan had arrived until the nurse at the desk said, "Ma'am, that's the doctor right there," and Adiz turned around. The woman in front of her was composed in the way people are composed right before they stop being composed. She was well-dressed, her eyes red from crying, her jaw set with the kind of tension that comes from holding too many things at once. She looked at Adiz. Then she looked at the scarf. The entire shape of her face changed. "Where did you get that?" she said. Adiz frowned. "I'm sorry. That?" The woman pointed. "The thing on your neck. Where did you get it?" "I don't." Adiz stopped. "Who are you?" "I'm asking you a question." "And I'm asking you one," Adiz said, her voice level. "Who are you and what can I help you with? Are you the doctor in charge of the patient in room 209? "I am." "Then you can answer my question. Where did you get that scarf?" Adiz looked at her for a long moment. "That is not your business. Now if you have questions about your family member's condition, I am happy to. Take it off." The corridor went quiet. "Take it off right now." Adiz felt the same thing settle in her chest that always settled when someone miscalculated her. Not anger. Something steadier than anger. "You need to lower your voice," she said. "I said take it off." The woman stepped forward, her hand shooting out toward Adiz's neck, fingers reaching for the scarf, close enough that Adiz felt the air move between them. Adiz caught her wrist. "If you touch me," she said, soft and absolute, "you will not like what comes next. I am telling you that clearly." The woman snatched her wrist back. "Do you know what that scarf means? Do you have any idea what it represents in my family? Who gave it to you? Why are you even wearing it?" "Someone who loves me gave it to me," Adiz said. "And I will wear it wherever I choose." "You don't get to," the woman continued. "Security, please." Adiz raised her voice toward the desk. "That won't be necessary." The voice arrived before the man did. Low and final and carrying the weight of someone who had spent years being the last word in any room he entered. Both women turned. Juno stood at the entrance of the corridor. He had come back inside from his call. His eyes moved between them in one sweep, reading the scene, reading the distance between the two of them, reading the set of Adiz's jaw and the state of his sister's face, and something behind his expression went very still. Adiz stared at him. "You know her?" It wasn't a question. He held her gaze. "Adiz. Do you know her?" "That's my sister," he said. "I'm sorry." The words landed in her chest in a way she hadn't expected. She looked at the woman again, then back at him. "Your sister," she said quietly. "The one you told me about." "Yes." Suyan turned on him immediately. "Juno. Who is this? Why is she wearing that scarf? Why does she have?" "Suyan." His voice was quiet. That was what made it dangerous. Don't what?" "I walk in here and find a stranger wearing. Our mother is in that room." He pointed down the corridor. "She is lying in a hospital bed. She is not well. And this is what you are doing." He looked at her with something that wasn't anger, it was heavier than anger. It was disappointing with history behind it. Not here. We are not doing this here. Suyun's mouth closed. Her chest was heaving. Adiz looked at both of them. Then she straightened her coat. I'll be in my office, she said. No heat in it. No tears. Just a woman removing herself from a situation that was no longer hers to stand in. She walked away without another word, her heels quiet on the polished floor. Juno found her office 7 minutes later. He knocked. She said come in without looking up from the chart she was not really reading. He sat across from her the way he always did, like he belonged in whatever room she was in, and for a moment neither of them spoke. She's been like this since we lost our father, he said finally. She doesn't mean to. She reached for my neck, Adiz said. I know. In my hospital. On my shift. She set the chart down. Juno. I know. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm not making excuses for her. I'm just telling you who she is underneath it. She's grieving, and she's been grieving in the worst possible way for 2 years, and she takes it out on everyone who gets close to what she loves. He paused. Including our mother. Including me. Adiz was quiet. The scarf, he said carefully, meant something to her. She and our mother had a terrible fight, and it's a long story. But when she saw it on you, she didn't see you. She saw everything she's been angry about. Adiz touched the scarf at her neck. She didn't take it off. Your mother is going to need 2 to 3 days, she said. Go take care of what you need to take care of. I told you I'd look after her, and I meant it. He looked at her for a long moment. Are you okay? I'm always okay, she said. He knew better than to push. He stood. He came around the desk and kissed her temple, not mouth, and held it there for a second. I'll call you, he said. She nodded. He left. She sat in her office alone and pressed one finger to the scarf at her neck and breathed. Mrs. Kong came home on the 3rd day. The day after that, she told Juno to invite Adiz for dinner. He called her that afternoon. She said yes. She dressed carefully again. The table was full. Mrs. Kang had cooked more than 4 people could finish and was happy about it. She put food on Adiz's plate without asking and told her to eat. Adiz ate. The conversation was warm, easy, the way evenings can be when a family is trying. Suyun sat across the table and said very little. Adiz was aware of her. She didn't let it show. The dinner moved forward. Food disappeared. Juno poured water. Mrs. Kang was telling a story about something that had happened years ago, laughing at her own memory of it, and for a moment the table felt like what it was supposed to feel like. Then Suyun set down her chopsticks. Mother. Her voice was even. Too even. Why is she still wearing that scarf? The table shifted. Mrs. Kang looked at her daughter. Suyun. I'm asking a question. She's wearing it right now. At our table. In our home. Who gave her that? I did, Mrs. Kang said simply. I gave it to her. Something crossed Suyun's face. You gave it to her, she repeated. A stranger. You gave our families. She is not a stranger, Mrs. Kang said. She is to me. Suyun turned to Adiz, and the evenness in her voice cracked into something with edges. How long have you known this family? A few months? And already you're sitting at our table wearing our things, getting our mother attached to you, making yourself comfortable like you belong here. Suyun. Juno's voice was a warning. No, she kept her eyes on Adiz. I want to understand what this is. What she is. Because from where I'm sitting, she showed up, turned my mother's head, and now she's here every 5 minutes like she's already family, and nobody seems to think that's strange except me. That's enough. Juno said it harder this time. Is it? Is it enough? Because nobody is asking the questions that. I'll ask you something instead. Adiz's voice was quiet. Completely, dangerously quiet. Suyun blinked. I've let you speak, Adiz said. I've sat here and let you say what you needed to say. But I want you to listen to me very carefully right now, because I will only say this once. She looked at Suyun directly. Not with fire. With something colder and more permanent than fire. You will never speak to me the way you just did again. Not at this table. Not in a hospital corridor. Not anywhere I am standing. I don't care how much pain you are in. I don't care what your reasons are. You do not get to speak to me like I am beneath you. Not ever. The table was absolutely silent. I came here tonight because I was invited, Adiz continued. I wore the scarf because it was given to me with love by a woman who has shown me more warmth in a few months than. She stopped herself. Collected herself. You don't know me. You've decided what I am without knowing a single thing about me. And that is your right. But do not mistake my patience for weakness. I am not weak. And I will not be spoken to like I am. Suyun stared at her. Mrs. Kang had stopped eating. She was looking at her plate. The silence stretched. Then Juno put down his glass and looked at his sister with an exhaustion that had years in it. Why, he said. Why do you always have to do this? Mama just came home from the hospital. She was in a bed 3 days ago. She is sitting at this table trying to have one good evening with her family, and this, he stopped. Shook his head. Why is it always like this with you? Suyun said nothing. Her hands were flat on the table. Apologize to Mama, he said. A long beat. I'm sorry, Mama, Suyun said. Her voice had lost its edge. What was left sounded younger. Hollower. Mrs. Kang nodded without looking up. Adiz turned to Mrs. Kang. I'm sorry too, she said gently. For the disruption. That's not what tonight was supposed to be. You have nothing to apologize for, Mrs. Kang said quietly. They finished dinner in near silence. Juno walked her out afterward. The night air was cool. She was quiet, and he knew better than to fill the silence too quickly. Don't tell me not to worry, she said when they reached her car. I wasn't going to. She turned to look at him. I don't want to be something that divides your family, Juno. That's not what I'm here for. You're not dividing anything, he said. My family was already cracked. You didn't cause that. Your sister hates me. My sister hates everything that got close to this family after we lost my father. She hated my mother's friends. She hated the neighbors who brought food. She'll hate the sun if it shines through our window too warmly. He said it without humor. It's not you. I know that's not easier to hear, but it's the truth. Adiz leaned against her car door. She reached for my neck in a hospital corridor, Juno. I know. Twice now she's come at me. In a corridor and now at your mother's dinner table. I know. He stepped closer. Let me handle it. Go home. Rest. Please. She searched his face for something. Whatever she found there was enough. She got in the car. He closed the door. She rolled down the window. He leaned in and kissed her, and she let herself hold it for a second before she pulled away and drove. He sat with Suyun and his mother that night. The house was quiet. The dishes had been washed. Mrs. Kang sat in her chair and Suyun sat across from her and Juno stood in the space between them. Tell me what that was tonight, he said to his sister. Tell me what you were trying to do. Suyun folded her arms. I was asking questions that nobody else is asking. You were humiliating a woman at our mother's table. I was. She is my girlfriend, Suyun. He said it flat and final. She has been for months. You've attacked her twice. Twice. And you don't even know her name properly. You've never once tried to know her. Because she walked into this family and mother just gave her everything. Her time. Her affection. She stopped. Her voice had cracked somewhere in the middle of the sentence and she was trying to find where she'd lost it. Her scarf, Juno said quietly. Suyun's joy tightened. Mrs. Kang spoke then. She had been watching her children go back and forth and now she spoke and both of them went still. I did not give her your scarf, she said. Suyun looked up. Your scarf is in my bedroom, Mrs. Kang said. Where you threw it. On the floor. During the worst fight we ever had. I picked it up and I kept it because you left it behind, and I didn't know when you'd come back for it. She paused. The one I gave Adiz I bought. Because I saw something in her that reminded me of who you used to be. Before you started carrying your grief like a weapon. The room was completely still. She reminded me of my daughter, Mrs. Kang said. The daughter who used to laugh at my stories. Who used to sit with me in the kitchen and talk about nothing for hours. I don't know what happened to that girl. But when I met Adiz, I felt her again. And yes, I gave her a scarf exactly like yours. Because she had become family to me before she even knew it. Suyun's face crumpled. You lost your father, Mrs. Kang said. I know. But so did I. I lost my husband. Juno lost his father. We all lost him, Suyun. You are not the only one holding that. But you are the only one who decided to turn the pain into a wall and stand behind it throwing things at anyone who tries to come near. The first tear ran down Suyun's face without warning. I'm sorry, she said. The words came out broken. Mama, I'm so sorry. I don't know what, since Baba died I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how to. Come here, Mrs. Kong said. Suyun crossed the room and folded herself into her mother's arms and cried the way people cry when they've been holding it for years. Mrs. Kang held her and said nothing and rocked her slowly. Juno stood and watched his family and felt something in him release that he had not known was clenched. Later, Mrs. Kang went to her room and came back with a scarf. The original one. She unfolded it and tied it around Suyun's neck herself, the same way she had tied one around Adi's. Suyun held her mother's hands when she finished and pressed them to her face. Nobody told Suyun to go. The next morning, she went to the hospital on her own, asked for Dr. Tagan at the desk, and waited. Adiz came out to the waiting area and stopped when she saw her. Her expression didn't change, but her posture did, something careful, a held breath. Suyun stood up. I'm not here for trouble, she said. I promise you I'm not. A long pause. Then Adiz turned and said, come to my office. They sat across from each other. Suyun didn't look away from her and didn't dress it up. I was wrong, she said. Both times. I came at you before I knew anything about you. I had decided what you were and I acted on it, and it was stupid and immature, and I am sorry. She swallowed. That scarf, when I saw it on you I lost my mind a little bit. I thought my mother had replaced me, giving away something of mine to someone she'd just met. And I know that sounds. It sounds like grief, Adiz said. Suyun blinked. I'm not saying it excuses how you acted, Adiz said. Because it doesn't. You grabbed my neck in a hospital corridor. In front of my colleagues. In front of patients. She held Suyun's gaze. If you had come to me like a person and introduced yourself and told me what the scarf meant to you, we could have had a conversation. Instead, you came at me twice like I had stolen something. Suyun nodded. I know that. And I'm ashamed of it. Adiz was quiet for a moment. Your mother told me about your father, she said gently. I'm sorry for your loss. Truly. Suyun pressed her lips together. I forgive you, Adiz said. But don't do it again. Something in Suyun's face broke open and rebuilt itself in about 3 seconds. She stood up. She reached out. Adiz stood and they hugged, careful at first, then real. Then Suyun pulled back and half laughed and wiped her face and said, my brother really loves you. I know, Adiz said. Good, Suyun said. Because he's insufferable when he pretends he doesn't. Juno came to her apartment that evening. They were talking relaxed, the way they always were, his jacket off, her feet tucked under her on the couch, when she said it. Your sister came to the hospital this morning. He went still. Suyun. Yes. I didn't tell her to. I know. She said that. Adiz watched his face. She apologized. Properly. We talked for a while. He stared at her. On her own, he said slowly. She just went. On her own. He sat back. Ran a hand over his jaw. Wow, he said quietly, and it carried something she didn't often hear from him, something soft, something surprised. She really has changed. She loves her mother, Adiz said. And she loves you. She just lost herself for a while. He looked at her. How are you this generous? She smiled. I'm a doctor. I know what people look like when they're in pain. He reached over and took her hand and held it without saying anything else. 3 weeks later, the Kang family table was loud again. Adiz sat beside Juno with Suyun across from her, and the conversation moved and jumped and doubled back on itself the way good dinners do. Suyun made a joke at her own expense. Mrs. Kang scolded her affectionately. Adiz laughed until her eyes watered and Mrs. Kang looked at her son with an expression that said, plainly, I told you. Then Juno stood up. The table noticed. Conversations stopped in sequence. He looked at Adiz and she looked back, and in the second before he moved she knew. He went down on one knee. You walked into me, he said. Literally. You knocked papers everywhere and ran away before I could ask your name. And I thought about you for 3 days before I saw you again. He paused. My mother called you daughter before I said the word girlfriend. My sister came to find you on her own when nobody told her to. And he stopped. Started again. I have loved you since before I said it out loud, and I don't want to wait anymore. Adiz's hand was over her mouth. Marry me, he said. His fingers brushed the edge of the scarf at her neck for a second, and something softened in his face. She looked at him. She looked at Mrs. Kang, who had both hands pressed to her heart. She looked at Suyun, who was already crying and trying to look like she wasn't. Yes, Sadiz said. Yes. He slid the ring on and stood and pulled her into him, and the table erupted, Mrs. King's voice the loudest of all, Suyun on her feet, the whole room full of noise and warmth and something that had taken a long time to build, but was solid now, solid all the way through. A year later, Mrs. Kong sat in an armchair by the window with a baby in her arms. The baby was small and warm and looking up at her with the wide, trusting eyes of someone brand new to the world. Mrs. Kang smiled down at her grandchild with the full unguarded joy of a woman who had lived long enough to see hard things become beautiful ones. Juno stood behind her. Adiz was at his side, leaning into his shoulder, the scarf still at her neck. Suyun sat on the arm of the chair, one finger curled in the baby's fist, laughing at something her mother had just said. The family was whole. The scarf was still on Adiz's neck. Only now it belonged to all of them. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss another powerful romance story. And tell me in the comments, at what moment did you realize Suyun was really hurting beneath the anger? See you in the next story.